Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you on a Monday, April 14th. That's right, it's the first off-cycle podcast of the season, and that means only one thing. Midweek games are upon us, and we are getting ready to cook things off in Maine this Tuesday with RIFC entering in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup, the first must-win game of the season. Joining me always from the Maine chair tonight in the studio, Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
Doing great. Looking forward to seeing if RIFC can do it in Lewiston on a cold, rainy Tuesday night. You know,
we will. Someone will, right? I mean, we want it to be RIFC, but one of these two teams will emerge as victor. And of course, we have a special guest to talk all things Hearts of Pine today. Joining us from the great state of Maine is the one and only Sean Fechtow. He's the beat writer covering the Hearts of Pine for the Blazing Musket. He's a Durgo Union supporter, and he's one of the co-hosts of a very good podcast up there, From the Forest to the Tide. Excellent work, by the way, that you guys have been doing on that. The visuals, like you guys came in seasoned pros already, and it makes Jason and I just look like the amateur hour that we are.
I thank you very much for having us, and thank you. We definitely put a lot of hard work into that podcast, and certainly appreciate that being recognized by you guys. And I'm certainly listening to you guys whenever I can, getting on and listening to your live Monday podcast. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and collaborate with you guys today. And I'm counting on some strong traveling numbers from the Defiance to concert with the Durgo Union up there in Lewiston, Maine, and trying, together to create that beautiful cacophonous soccer atmosphere that we love so much in these games. And something that CBS will be putting across the airways and on YouTube for over in Europe, where everyone can watch us play on the field and have that great atmosphere that we love so much. And I just can't wait for kickoff. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be great. I still, it's been so much fun to watch your club's journey, your fans' journey. I think we need to talk about that a little bit, because maybe some of the listeners haven't been as invested in the Hearts of Pine as we are, but I still love the relationship building that has existed between these two clubs. I don't know if it's sustainable, because long-term with ProRel on the way, one day we very much could be in the same league, the same ecosystem. And it's easy right now to say, like, hey, I like what you guys are doing because I don't have to worry about you on a regular standing. But now with this whole thing, I'll be curious to see how this relationship develops. You guys came in, we all fell in love with each other. Meanwhile, we show up with Hartford, and that's a completely different story. Can you just do us one favor, though, Sean, for Tuesday's game? Can you make sure your field doesn't get frozen, causing you to have to postpone this match? That would be great.
I think we can handle that for you. I find that a little humorous. We're up there playing in the snow and the rain and the sleet, and then I hear that they had to cancel because of a frozen pitch.
it was really weird to me because I remember there was a match last season. I saw like Hartford against, I think it was Charleston, and it was like abysmal. It was like 34 degrees. It was pouring the entire match, and they just played the match. And then Hartford has just decided it's 38 today. It's too cold.
I don't understand it personally. I look at it as, if you knew that the pitch was in unusable conditions and let's not mince words here. If it's not safe for the players, then that is the right thing to do. But you knew this weather was coming. I mean, I'm out here still in California, and I know what the weather is every day. Jason's been keeping me up to date on the weather in New England and how much not good it is right now. I would think that you wouldn't get to the 0 hour of game time, delay your game by 2 hours, hoping you can do something, and then have to call it all off. It's a terrible experience for people that were already there. It's a terrible experience for the away fans for Indy 11. And what I want to know, though, the most, and I asked this to John Morrissey, do the red cards, because you remember Hartford now has more red cards than goals scored this season. Do the red cards transfer to that game, or does Birmingham Legion now benefit from it? Because that was basically a layup 3 points, and now they don't get that. So I'm curious, which way will that go?
Yeah, that's some interesting kind of, it's Article 2 section kind of, whatever that I'm just not privy to. I'd imagine that they would just move on to the next match, but I can't say that for 100% certainty.
I'd be furious. I'd be furious. But let's get into this. This is not a Hartford podcast. Absolutely not. Let's start talking about the team we're here to cover today, which is the Hearts of Pine out of Portland. Sean, like I kind of said things at the beginning here, a lot of RIFC fans, a lot of New Englanders have been closely watching your team's story. But what's the summarized version? Like, what's the in 90 and 90 version of how this team came to be? How did the city of Portland, the state of Maine, rally behind this group? And how did Portland get its first professional team?
Yeah, 5 or 6 years in the making. It's a long story, right? But if I had to summarize that 5 or 6 years and try to put it into a nice, neat package, it all comes down to the ownership group wanting to listen and learn from the community, and what they originally had in mind as goals and focuses from day one. It had to be adjusted a little bit along the way as they learned more and more, talking to the community and what they originally thought the community may want with their assumptions. And then going in and having those conversations, having those town halls and talking to the community and getting the feedback, and then pausing, pivoting, and correcting their plan, and then moving forward with the community in mind. And when you do that over the course of those 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you're pulling everybody into what you want to go do as a team and to represent a community by listening to the community and re-racking your plan and changing your plan because of the community's input, that's a powerful thing. And that's what the Hearts of Pine have done.
Jason, have you seen any similarities between these two groups? We've watched both stories. Are there any wow, they're doing this better than RIFC, or are there places where we could reach out and be like, hey, this is how we did this in that time, in that moment? Have you seen those similarities in these two groups?
I think there are some similarities. I mean, each of our stories is a little bit different, but I definitely think the one thing that both of our teams have in common is a very strong kind of grassroots support, where there are a lot of passionate people in the areas, ready to, put their life on the line for their team practically.
Yeah, I think the biggest wake-up call, I agree that the supporters, the soccer sickos, are very much in the same mindset. What was more refreshing in the Portland story to me was understanding that I haven't seen any detractors and negative, people online, like naysayers about the team coming to Portland. We've had to deal with that in a much larger scale when the team was coming to Rhode Island, specifically more around the stadium. But, it has been a battle every day. Some days we measured it in inches, others we could measure it in miles. But it took a long time to win over more than just the soccer sickos. It feels like Portland got behind this team the day it was announced, when it was still USL to Maine.
Yeah, so the journey isn't without a few pitfalls, if you will. But maybe pitfalls not the right word. I think it probably goes back into what I was talking about, and with pivoting and listening and communicating a little bit more. And you kind of bring up a good point with the stadium, right? We certainly went round and round with our stadium there a little bit, and with the field that was in our stadium, and the emotions and the feelings that comes with pulling up a field that it's a community stadium, so all kinds of different teams play there, high schools, amateur groups, all kinds of different people use this field. But when you're pulling up a field that a high school team has played on, and they've got a emblem in the center of that pitch for the past 9 or 10 years, it comes with some emotions, right, and some feelings, some very strong feelings, and the Hearts had to navigate those waters and communicate with the school and what their plans were, and also had to readjust some of their plans going forward. But we did get through that, so that's all part of the journey, as they say.
And what is the timeline for Fitzpatrick? Obviously, this game is going to be not in Portland, but in Lewiston. What's the ETA? When will the Hearts of Pine play their first match at Fitzpatrick Stadium in Portland?
Yeah, so the pitch has all been put down, and they've actually been practicing on it. And I think probably the last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 weeks or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. And everything is on track for a May 4th home opener against Knoxville. So right now, basically, pitch is all down. People are practicing on it. They're going through their other amenities and the things that they were going to upgrade, and some $2.5 million coming out of the ownership's group's pocket. It's all privately invested. It is not coming from the town. It's not tax dollars. That's all part of the upgrades. So they're basically getting all that polished off, and we'll be ready for Knoxville on May 4th.
So what I'm hearing is, Jason, it sounds like the Hearts of Pine are doing some 2017 Trinidad and Tobago field conditions and making us go even further to Lewiston when you have a perfectly serviceable stadium in Portland this Tuesday. I see what you guys are doing. You're trying to use every advantage you can possibly get. I'm on to you.
You got to slow those guys down. You guys are too fast.
So let's get into this game itself and kind of go through what fans can expect on both sides for this game on Tuesday. Kind of moving into the format here. We're going to start with Rhode Island FC first. Their own run in the Open Cup is not as historic. It has not been as remarkable as what the Hearts of Pine have been able to experience so far. It's almost a year to the day when the lads in the Amber and Blue were bounced out of the tournament in their first ever showing. It was a round 3 performance as well against the Charlotte Independents. The game ended in a thrilling 4-4 draw that unfortunately went to penalties, and we kind of know what happened from there. Weirdly enough, the goals, it was so much fun to see, and I went back and rewatched that game because, one, we all know that from an RIFC perspective, it was not the same roster, but seeing goals from Connor McGlynn, Nathan Messer, who I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot today, Clay Holstead, and then Stephen Turnbull burying one in the death of extra time to allow us to continue on to penalties. It kind of showed the first version of this team's never say die spirit. It definitely also showed hints of this team's first problem with converting penalties. That was something we would go on for the rest of the season to struggle through. But I guess, Jason, to kind of kick things off here, when we look back at that game, at that team, how does this Rhode Island FC squad stack against the 2024 roster? Should we expect some of the similarities and the comparisons, or is this a completely different team now?
It is wild to take a look back at that squad and you see so many faces who are all gone now. Out of that starting lineup that they put on the field, only Yao and Nodarse would be actual players and starters. And then if you expand from there, only we still have Lee and Vang, and everyone else is gone. So
Lee was a starter in sorts because of the injuries Koke had. So yeah.
Yeah, and then we did have a few injuries, kind of struggles throughout the beginning of the season. I mean, kind of same thing we're going through right now. Seems like a common theme. But when you look at the lineup that we put out, I know that we started to rotate because that was a wild match there. But yeah, this is not the same team at all. We were still kind of figuring ourselves out. There were a lot of players who were on the pitch there, someone like a Connor McGlynn, who we thought would maybe be an integral part of our midfield, but kind of never found his way into the first team.
And we also know what happened with Nate Messer because, he's now scoring goals again in the Open Cup in all of its glory. Nate Messer's been an incredible contributor to the Hearts of Pine. Sean, I don't want to break this apart, but if we can talk primarily about the storied Open Cup run that the Hearts of Pine have been on so far, how has that looked? How has that been as an experience? Because it seems like it's a tale of two different things. Your regular season, maybe not off to the start you would want, but your Open Cup run is now the stuff of legends.
Yeah, it's quite clear, certainly after last night's match there with Tormenta. That's kind of underlined the club's view early on in this season and how they're breaking this apart from league play and the Open Cup play. What better way to galvanize a young team than in an early cup competition, right? And I think that's kind of what Bobby Murphy and the boys there and the Hearts are taking full on right now, is they're prioritizing the Open Cup, knowing that we've got some 27 some odd league matches in front of us, and there's plenty of time to make some hay in the league to get into the top 8 for the playoff positions, right? So for right now, I think everything is all in for Open Cup, and we've seen that in the last 2 or 3 matches. These last 2 matches, rather. Third match being on Tuesday, and just going through those cup competitions and what those experiences were like for the fans, and the fans are kind of getting educated on what this stuff looks like too, right? So we talk about the players and making sure we're prioritizing things from a team perspective and tactics, and making sure you got the right players out there for a cup competition versus league. But it's also the supporters that are getting the education on what this stuff looks like, and getting to enjoy these cup competitions where they're lock, stock, and barrel invested in this thing. And it shows on the pitch. And when it shows on the pitch, the supporters are getting that type of entertainment value, and they're giving it right back to the players on the pitch. And we're getting a lot back from the players, just overrun with excitement on what they're feeling on the pitch, what they're hearing on the pitch, and are loving the support they're getting from this Maine crowd up here.
I have to say, it's been fun watching your fans kind of grow into their role. I most notably in the Hartford match, watching them all run the wrong direction. Not their fault, because I know they were told to go one way, but you just see a stream of supporters run right, and then everyone starts lining up in the left, and it's you see the train just turn around and slowly like, no, we got to go the other way, and then they all pile up in front of the goal. I've never seen this, by the way. No one's given me a clear answer yet, but the league, with the refs saying like, hey, you can't have people behind the net. I know Coach Murphy had to go out and like ask people to like please move aside. I've still never seen that. Obviously, if this was another stadium where there was seating there, like this wouldn't be a thing. So no one's gotten back to me if it was a safety thing, if it was just the refs, doing ref things. I've never seen that before, but it has been fun watching your fans literally grow into the game.
Yeah, my understanding of that whole situation was, I guess there's a rule that says the referee does have cognizance to make that call if he so chooses. But I tell you what, it came over commentary for a player that had a professional career of some 20 years or so, and a commentator that had probably about 40, 50 games under his belt, and they're both laughing and just kind of dumbfounded because they had never seen anything like this before. So. Hey, only in Lewiston.
It's been a tough week for refs in the USL ecosystem, that's for sure. Let's get into these head-to-head records. There's not a lot here, but there is something that I think is worth kind of discussing and talking about. These two teams have already had a lot of looks at each other in the preseason, right? There was first the 0-0 draw in Bermuda, and then there was the 2-2 draw at Centerville Bank Stadium at an undisclosed time and at a then disclosed location. The Hearts of Pine are the only team during the preseason that Rhode Island FC couldn't actually break down and get a win against in their entire time. It kind of showed, especially with the 0-0 draw, how early on, how difficult that this Hearts of Pine team can really be to play against. More interestingly enough, though, too, head coach Bobby Murphy is a known item to Coach Cano Smith because of their time they actually spent in this similar orbit. Both of them assistant coaches down in Orlando at the same time. I didn't know this at the time. Bobby was with the MLS team in Orlando City, and Cano was with the Pride. So they were very much in and around each other's ecosystem. So there's a bit of a track history here. Jason, we talk all the time about this. Like, how much does this go into factoring setting up against this team that you've had multiple looks at? Is this an advantage for Cano? Is this an advantage for Rhode Island FC? Or is it just another day in the office?
I think it'll benefit RIFC. I mean, in some ways, it'll benefit both teams. That they'll have an idea. There are a lot of times when you go into these quote-unquote David versus Goliath matches where the larger team maybe doesn't have a lot of familiarity with the other team. They don't know what kind of style they're going to play. They don't know what they're going to bring to the match. So obviously they'll want to impose their game, but maybe depending on the way that other team plays, that maybe that counters that. Maybe they have like a lot of speed and that kind of ruins the way that they play and they have to make those adjustments. Seeing that RIFC already has some familiarity with this team, granted they're still kind of evolving in the early days, I think that'll like give them a little bit of a benefit as to playing a complete unknown.
And then, Sean, for you, one of the questions we definitely want to get to understand is, has Bobby Murphy solidified his tactics? Has Bobby Murphy built the formation? Coach Kano has been a lot of things in the last year, but he's been very consistent in it's one strategy, and he's going to perfect it with the team, regardless of the 11 that he picks on game day. Has Bobby Murphy had to introduce variety? Is he still trying to sort out with the talent he has? Like, sometimes you get talent and you make it work with the system, and sometimes you have a system and the talent isn't as independent, but they're just good at doing the thing from A to B or B to C. What's it been like for Bobby Murphy with this team and how he's constructed it?
Yeah, so with Bobby, he's predominantly going to be playing out of a 4-2-3-1. That's typical formation for Bobby. When you actually are deep in your own third and you're on the defense, it's going to look more like a 4-4-2. But anywhere else other than your own third, deep in your own box, it's going to be a 4-2-3-1 for Bobby Murphy and the boys. And he has played around a little bit with a back three, but that's usually due to some of the the outside backs or outside back, depending on what his tactic is that he wants to do. We'll be moving forward, and then you'd see maybe a defensive holding midfielder rotating back and a center back role, center back role, and then the other two splitting out, and that'd be kind of forming your back three. But we want to press, we want to be aggressive, we want to be in your face type of play style. We're gonna push on the ball, and then when we get the ball, we're looking to go the other way and do a little something with it. Not really looking to possess for possession's sake. We will do that a little bit if we have to take a quick breath, but that's not primarily what you're going to see us do. Usually when we have the ball, we're going vertical with it, and we're looking to score.
I think that's going to be one of the big talking points as we wind down in a bit, where these two teams want to be high octane, high press. So I feel like the fight in the midfield is going to be who can play the cleaner game and not make mistakes, because it feels like both of these teams are set up to punish it. These results are really hard to go by. It's also some of the few games that we didn't get to see any of the tape on. So we've been able to watch the Hearts of Pine in their regular season and in these Open Cup matches, but there's still kind of an unknown in terms of that style. I guess, Sean, we always say this in preseason, the results don't matter. But, with these two teams and the record that they now have, was enough learned amongst these two coaches? Like, do those preseason games matter in how both of these teams will set up for this game on Tuesday?
Well, I guess we'll see on Tuesday night. So it's hard telling, not being able to see a single minute of it, right? But the information that you hear, leaking in through and around the supporter section is they were hotly contested matches between RIFC and Portland Hearts of Pine. It got testy. I heard rumors of a red card, maybe red cards. So I think that's probably the nature of the beast. And what you're going to see on Tuesday night is you're going to see two teams that are aggressive and want to go forward with the ball and have no problem getting into tackles, actually prefer it. And I think it's going to get testy on the field, and it's going to be an aggressive match. And I think we're in for some fun.
So let's break down these two teams. They're independently in different positions on their own tables. The Rhode Island FC now has had 2 bye weeks, so they are 2 games behind a majority of the USL Championship. Obviously, Hearts of Pine also had a delay in their season as they. I guess it's just maybe a thing in New England, right? Like, let the teams up here thaw out a little bit more. But, Rhode Island FC is coming off of their first win of the season back against the Oakland Roots now. It'll have been over 9 days between their last 2 games, whereas, the Hearts of Pine, unfortunately, a thrilling game. I watched the Hearts of Pine get benzini'd very thoroughly against South Georgia Tormenta, and it's been an interesting start. So what can you tell us about the results so far? maybe some of the players that are on their way in. I think you still have you're not a fully complete team, right? Like there's still some players that are on their way.
Yeah, we have. I'm going to say two. So basically, we've got JT Camara is still yet with the club. He's still working through his visa with his country, Sierra Leone, and basically Natty Jones rather, from Trinidad and Tobago, is with the club this week. So he might get a chance to maybe practice one or two times before Tormenta. So he did not travel with the team. So he is with us now. So basically JT is really the only one left. When it comes to the results and what we've currently had here in the league, it's night and day from cup competition. Basically going into our first two matches, our first match was against FC Naples, which is currently top of the League One right now. And that was basically a match where they wanted to kick the long ball on us quite a bit to try to stop some of that aggressive pressing that we like to do. So we had to kind of, drop back a little bit, make sure our lines are synced up and we're not out of whack, and basically kind of soak up some of that pressure early on, and then get into a little bit of what we wanted to go do. But that all turned into 0-0 for that Naples game. So draw there, and then we went over to Spokane after much travel, and then we kind of ground out a 0-0 there. Tactics wise, did change a little bit on that wider pitch. We saw more of a 5-4-1 from Bobby Murphy at Spokane. Very, very defensive match. But we managed to go ahead and grind it out. And basically that's kind of what the league has looked like this year, with an exception of that Tormenta match. You actually saw a little bit more offense there. But certainly, again, night and day between cup and league matches.
I was feeling just personal for Liotti. I mean, what was it? The lack of a penalty converted. We know that very well here at Rhode Island FC, but then also just hitting the post after stripping the ball away from Georgia's keeper, who, if I remember right, by the way, stood on his head all night, but he was the goalkeeper for the Charlotte Independents in our game against them last.
Pack.
Yeah.
Austin Pack.
So, yep. So like that's just par for the course right there. Jason, let's talk through, because we're going to get into how these two teams are going to set up here in a second. Let's go through the availability report, though, because I think it's going to be crucial to understand the players that are not available. Who do we have on the RIFC side?
Yeah, so as you know, Isaac Anking is still out. Still looking at quite a few months before we're likely to see him. Hugo Bacharach, similar kind of thing. Not as long, but probably at least a month and a half or so before we're likely to see him. We have yet to see Daniel Rivera, unless you have any sort of news, Matt. I don't think we kind of really know what's going on there.
The last two times I've been there, I have not seen him even at practice, so I do not know what's going on with him.
So long term, what does that right? We're not going to solve that here today, but like, what does that right wing back position look like? Who knows?
And then Sean for the Hearts of Pine.
Yeah, so for the Hearts of Pine, we've got a couple people questionable. One we actually just saw in the last match there with Tormenta. He did play one half. That was Samuel Malamaki Camacho, and he has been a center back for us, left-footed center back. And in the first match against CD Filands, he came on in the last probably 7 minutes or so and kind of went down with one of those untouched injuries, grabbing his left calf, and you never want to see something like that. He was then going to be into the lineup in I believe it was Spokane, and he had to get scratched early for that lineup. And we saw Wada, which is fresh off his 9,500-mile voyage from Japan to Chicago to Portland and back to Spokane. And he went out there and gave us a good 65, 70 minutes, basically zombieing his way around the pitch. So he's probably in better shape than I originally thought coming into this. But the other one, we have another center back that we have, Kamali Green. Against Hartford, he ended up coming off at halftime with a head injury, so a concussion basically, and we haven't seen him since. So questionable, Kamali Green. I've got him penciled into the lineup, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit, because if he's healthy, he's a starter. I'm kind of trying to read the tea leaves, and I'm gonna say maybe he's had enough time and he can come back into the starting lineup. But we do have a parentheses Q beside his name for that exact reason.
And then I think the Azad Liati, will also not be available. That's correct, for red card suspension for the Open Cup.
That's correct. Red card suspension. He's not injured in any way, but red cards would do it. He is not eligible.
Did you hear anything from Portland's operations side about challenging that? Because I watched that second yellow that turned it into a red, and that did not look like, in my opinion, that did not look worthy of it. I forget who it was on the Hartford side, but they step into it. Like, he looks back, sees where Azad's going. Azad's not going to hit the brakes for no reason, and they collide. The Hartford players sold it better. Yeah. Did you hear anything about them wanting to challenge and overturn that? It's such a big deal for an Open Cup game. Did you hear anything about that?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard anything with the Hawks looking to challenge that at all.
In a lot of other leagues, as far as I'm aware, they generally don't allow you to challenge yellow cards, only straight reds. So because it was a second yellow, I think it was unlikely that they could do anything about it. That being said, every league kind of tends to have different rules, but I think that's generally the case across most of them.
I forgot that was a second yellow. Yeah, no, that tracks. All right, so then, Sean, it's a short week for your team. Did Bobby Murphy rotate and rest players? You said earlier he was prioritizing this Open Cup run at this point. In preparation for this midweek showdown, they're coming off of 3-day rest. It's going to be a quick turnaround. You're basically getting a little bit of regeneration and recovery. There's no real time to practice. You're going straight into this game too. How is Murphy handling these most recent games? What's his strategy, and how will he most likely construct this roster on game day?
Yeah, so basically, you did see a big churn within the roster against Tormenta. So, we had about 6 changes in that roster to our best 11, which is on the screen currently right now. So, we didn't have any Kamali Green. We didn't start off the match with Nathan Messer. We didn't start off the match with an Ollie Wright. We didn't start off the match with a Titus Washington, and we didn't start off the match with a Varela, right? So. And of course, Hunter Morris also not in net. We had our debut with Cash Oladapo was his professional debut in net, and Mr. Riley as well had his professional debut. So, as you can see, a very large change in what our strongest starting 11 is. So, this is the starting 11 that I believe that we're going to see. I was going back and forth on who that center forward was going to be. I did put Riley in there, and he did have a really good match against South Georgian Tormenta. Had a really good match, so I went ahead and put him in. But don't be surprised if you see Wada in that 10 role, right in behind Titus Washington.
And for some of our listeners are only on audio form. Can you read out the 4-2-3-1 that you have projected?
I can. So in the back line, so again 4-2-3-1. Back line, left back is Nathan Messer, and then left center back is Kamali Green. Right center back is Sean Vinberg, and the right back is Jaden Jones Riley. Of course, in net, as previously discussed, is Hunter Morse. Our 2 holding midfielders is Patrick Langlois, and we also have Michelle Poon-Angeron as our 2 holding midfielders that are basically, you can pen those in every lineup that we have when we're going to have our best 11. And then on the left wing, Ollie Wright, and then in basically the 10 spot, I've got Riley, but again, don't be surprised if we don't see Wada instead. Nathan Varela is our right winger, and then up top of the whole thing is Titus Washington. He's our striker, and that's our starting 11.
Who's the most synergistic pairing that you have so far? What have been the emerging combinations that you've seen shine brightly so far for the season?
Yeah, so one of the very common threads while in attack for the Hearts has been the link up of Nathan Messer and Ollie Wright down the left-hand side. Certainly the preferred side for the Hearts to attack going forward. In an interview with Ollie Wright on basically the post-match pulse, which is another Derigo Union podcast. It's a live podcast after a match day. We interviewed with him, and he mentioned that you run across those players every once in a while in your career where you just sync up. You just know what he's going to do, and he knows what you're going to do, and that seems to be what we found early on with Nathan Messer and Ollie Wright. So if you're going to see us play out of the back a little bit, which does happen on occasion, Kamali Green to Messer to Wright to maybe Poon Angeron, then back to Messer again, and then Messer's crossing it in, trying to find Washington or Varela. That seems to be one of our go-tos is operating down that left-hand side with Nathan Messer and Ollie Wright doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
And who would be one of the X factors? We look at bench depth. I remember Keegan coming on and scoring in the game against Hartford. I see Mikey Lopez on this team. I haven't seen him start yet. Been curious why he's not. Why the veteran? I don't know if it's just locker room presence. I know he's a Bobby Murphy guy. Who's the X factor that we need to worry about on the day?
Yeah, I mean, you're picking a good one. I lost his name. Where is it? Mikey Lopez. You picking a good one there with Mikey Lopez. And
I almost don't think I'm going to cut that. I think we're going to leave the delay on that.
He does a little bit of everything for the club. He really does. For example, in the Tormenta match that we just had, and the free kick that we had, you'll see him in the wall. If you look back at that clip, Messer, of course, takes the free kick. He goes and he kicks it on goal. There's a rebound from the goalkeeper, and Patrick Langlois scores the goal. But if you look back and you look into the wall if you're looking at your TV, it's going to be on the left-hand side of that wall, right on that left edge. You're gonna see a Mikey Lopez doing some veteran stuff where he's kind of collapsing himself back against that wall and kind of closing down that left edge and making just enough room for that ball to sneak through and sneak up on the keeper. And he wasn't quite ready for it. He took a step to the left, and he had to jump back to the right and get down low, and that caused that rebound. And Patrick Langlois, of course, putting it home. That's what Mikey Lopez does for the Hearts. He's got that senior level savvy, that USL championships pedigree. And he's coming back off from that Achilles tendon surgery. And he's kind of getting worked back in with Bobby. He got his first 13 minutes, I think, in probably about the second game of the season. And then I think he had about 65, 70 minutes in Spokane. And then he played about another 50 or 60 down there in Tormenta. So don't be surprised if Mikey Lopez comes in off the bench and impacts this game, along with another one that we could be probably looking at as impacting this match is Evan Southern, or as they call him, Evos. What an eye for the game Evan Southern has as a rookie. You don't usually see that on a brand new rookie coming into the match, coming in off the bench. He's the one that made that assist up to Jake Keegan against that Hartford match. He saw that run there. Jake saw the same thing. He put the ball in position for Jake to run onto, and it was a quick touch up over on top of the keeper to push that into extra time. So definitely want to make sure you're looking out for Evan Southern as well.
We'll let Connor know in case he hasn't already done the millions of hours of footage. I don't know if you guys are on Instagram, but Kano usually always just puts out really good stories, really interesting things about his life. And last night he posted a video of him doing homework, and the man had 15 televisions in a room. He had iPads, he had laptops, he had computer screens, he had 3 like plasma big screens, like, and they were all different championship games all going on. Like, just watching tape. So I don't know. That's incredible to me. But let's move on to Rhode Island FC. Jason, we went over this so many times this week. I know at times we don't agree about a lot of things, but I think this is the farthest we've ever been in a lack of agreement. Obviously, it's impossible to predict Coach Kano's game day roster decisions. He could write a masterclass on being unpredictable. So if you were trying to get into the mind of Coach Kano Smith, what should we be expecting here?
I mean, I was trying to find a balance between there not being a game this weekend, so you would think he'd potentially field a slightly stronger lineup. With, we had mentioned earlier on in the pod, last season, that there's only technically quote unquote 2 starters who made the actual pitch. And then with the kind of injuries, like we had mentioned, who is our right-sided like wing back or right midfielder, if you will, on our, in our 5-man midfield there. We saw Clay do pretty well there. We saw Noah Fuson in there, so I think that maybe we might see him get another opportunity there. We'll get to the full lineup in a second. Generally, you swap your keepers. I talked to Lee a few weeks ago in Phoenix. He said he was ready to go. We've seen him on the bench. So unless there are some actual fitness concerns, I imagine he will start. When we look at our quote unquote striker core, if we decide that Fuson is going to be playing as kind of like a wing back, I think you would rest one of them. I think we'll potentially start Williams, but at that point, who knows? We don't have a lot of quote unquote backup strikers. Doyle was, our kind of open cup striker, if you will, in kind of those off Wednesday games, but we don't have a Doyle anymore. We have a lot of like kind of tricky midfielders and like your Joe Brito, your Amos Shapiro Thompson, your Kevin Vang. I mean, like, Kevin Vang is listed a forward, but even then you look at the way he plays and he's very much like a center forward cam kind of second striker, not an actual out and out striker. But so this is probably wrong, but let's just go ahead and give it a shot. We're playing a 3-5-2 as always. We'll have Lee and Net in that back 3. We think we're going to see Hope Gun to get some minutes along with Yao there in the center as always, and no Darce out on the right. In that midfield 5, Aldair Sanchez has done pretty well in the minutes that he has played with us. So I think this will be a good opportunity for him to get some more minutes under his belt, show us what he can do. That midfield trio, I'm thinking Ibarra and Okiyoshi as your kind of holding midfielders. We've seen Okiyoshi already get some minutes, and he has been pretty solid. Maybe, give Clay a night off, but who knows? Maybe he'll be out on the right. Haribo will be back from his red card suspension, and we've seen him be pretty effective playing kind of behind the strikers as that almost like pseudo central midfielder cam. I mean, remember, I think it was Tampa where he pressed the goalkeeper and got that deflected goal. So, I mean, he has some attacking capabilities as well as defensive. He can kind of be that all-arounder. Like I'd mentioned, I think maybe we'll try and see if Noah Fuson can kind of play that right wing back position again. We don't have with Danny, who knows how long Danny Rivera is going to be out. Someone kind of has to fulfill that. We tried Quizera there one time, but I think realistically Quizera it's just so much better on the left that I almost think we're going to just have those two with Quizera and Sanchez will kind of be the rotation from there. So yeah, I think maybe we'll give that another shot with Fuson outright. And then to give, some of our strikers a rest, I think we'll start Williams, maybe see some Chico second half. And then Brito came on a lot last year as that kind of secondary striker. And I remember when we even talked to John Morrissey about this kind of when we were still finding ourselves figuring out like what is Joe's best position. Well, it turns out that he plays well as kind of a second forward in a way, as a cam, and we were trying to force him a little further back into that midfield trio and just felt it didn't work very well. And he made some great appearances off the bench last year, and I think that, you know, give him an opportunity to show us what he can do again. So, you know, why not in the Open Cup?
I think, you know, the easy talking point, right, where people are probably reading this or listening as we talk and going, what do you mean Joe Burrito is going to be at the top of a starting 11? You know, one, this is an Open Cup game, and you want to see, these are some of the fewest moments in a player's professional year that, you know, they're rotational players at best, or sometimes they don't even get selected for the game day roster. It makes sense. I do think Joe Burrito has a very large and loud calling card to be on the pitch for this game. Rio Hope Gund, I want to see. I'm not sure what he has next in store for himself. Kano is very clear that Hope Gund was there to serve as help for a red carded Haribo. I hope that he does get some playing time. I'm not sure if he gets the start, but this is a great way for him to prove, like, hey, I've got nothing left to lose. And so if this is an opportunity to extend from a 25-day contract to a rest of the year situation, like, he's going to be playing out of his, like, you're literally playing for your life at this point. We talk all the time about players playing for their next meal. I mean, this is really what's going on for Rio Hope Gund right now. I think this feels right. But what I want to ask you, Jason, is, you know, we see Brito out there, we see Okiyoshi and Aldair, all of these players that we've seen great moments from so far, but not enough yet to like be the consistent starter. But then you don't have Kevin Vang, who was the captain of last year's Open Cup match. We don't even know if Cole Dewhurst, who's listed on the bench here, but he didn't make the trip up to Oakland. You know, and then we don't even have Amos Shapiro-Thompson on our bench. He won't even be dressing for this game. Kind of curious how you would want to maybe share that with listeners on, you know, why will we not see AST, and why would we not see Kevin Vang into this mix?
Like I said, probably wrong. I was just kind of going with some sort of amalgamation of, you know, partial first team, you know, partial not. You know, I could very well see a Kevin Vang start again. I just wonder, when we think about how last year's Open Cup match went, where it kind of got away from us, and considering we had the weekend off, maybe you field a slightly stronger squad. And then from there, kind of change that going forward into the second half, try and get the game done early, right? Have some of the starters out there, see if you can get a few goals in the first half. From there, you can maybe swap out some of the kind of rotational players. It's tough to say because, like you said, Kano likes to throw curveballs at us all the time, and it's hard to kind of figure out what he's thinking.
I mean, we know from what Sean just shared, Bobby Murphy is prioritizing this Open Cup right now, even at the risk of some regular season points. You know, we have the longer rest, but we also have a game against Detroit this weekend. Why wouldn't you just play the starting 11? Is it because this is one of those chances where the B squad players get a chance to shine? Or is this, you know, like, where's the priority if you're Coach Kano?
You know, Tuesday to Saturday is still, you know, a kind of a short rest, especially with, you know, Maine's only 3.5 hours away, but there's still travel involved. And then you have to fly to Detroit. So you have limited, you know, practice time and rest time. And then the reality is some of these players don't get any other opportunities than the Open Cup. And so just generally, I would expect coach to give them that opportunity to prove themselves, right? So we, like when you talk about Hope being like his opportunity to sell himself as like, no, you need to sign me to a real contract. And coach is like, all right, well, here's your opportunity. Go out there and show me why I should keep you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the travel plans for this team, but the 3-hour piece, they definitely will be there most likely if they don't show up the day before, they will be there through the night. They're not going to come back down that day. And it sounds weird because most of the fans, I think, are just trying to make like a head up, watch the game, and head back down all in one day. But even when Rhode Island traveled to Hartford last year for the first El Clamico, they stayed overnight. And so this is a team that, you know, it's technically 9 days of rest, but it's another day away from their family. I'm curious what Kano will put out. I think that there's some gravitas. I think there's some real weight behind this Open Cup match. This is not just an Open Cup game. This is kind of the first salvo of the battle for soccer in New England in a way. I heavily, conspiracy theory that one of these two teams is going to next take on the New England Revolution. I just feel like that's in the cards. It can't not be. So it'll be hard to say, but I think that whatever happens, I don't think it will be Kano trying to mitigate or manage minutes across two games. I think Kano is going to select the players that he feels have earned the right and have the ability to take it to the Hearts of Pine. I just don't see it any other way. So let's jump into the players to watch. Sean, we want to know from the Hearts of Pine perspective, obviously a lot of exciting things we're seeing with Hunter's performance in net. Walk us through who are the players that Rhode Island FC fans should be, doing their own scouting report on or paying close attention to on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so we talked through, a little bit of Ollie Wright and Nathan Messer, and of course those two are right on top of the list. And I already talked about how they link up and how the Hearts like to really attack down that left-hand side. Now that's their favorite side to attack. So first and foremost, those are the two you got to keep your eyes on. But to put it in the defensive role, the defensive stalwart, if you will, for the Hearts is certainly Sean Vidberg, that right center back role, dual winning machine. Vinberg marshals the back line for the Hearts. And until we played Tormenta with a very rotated roster, we were, clean sheets through two matches. And in a lot of the cup matches that we played against, teams found it very, very difficult to penetrate that back line. So Sean Vinberg is someone, if you're interested in watching the back line in matches, you're going to want to focus on number 7 because he's going to show you some strong center back play for the Hearts.
And then, Jason, how about for Rhode Island FC? I mean, the one I'm the most excited about is Jackson Lee. Unless he isn't healthy, like you said, he should be off to the races here. We know what he's capable of. It's going to be good to see him get minutes. Who are the players that you think are going to have the biggest impact on this game?
Yeah, like we mentioned, Jackson Lee. He is almost too good to be a second keeper, in a way. A little bit of a different style from Koke, more of a traditional kind of shot stopper keeper. He does have a pretty good long ball in him, though. That's kind of why I was thinking tying it back to the lineup, why you might want JJ out there. There's that synergy, kind of just maybe try some route one, see what happens. And then maybe even combine that with someone like Joe, and if not Joe, someone like Kevin Vang, like a kind of diminutive, fast kind of second striker to be right there to pick up those runs that JJ has gotten a lot better at, being able to kind of distribute the ball from those runs to kind of try and get in behind the Hearts of Pine defense. But then combine that with Aldair Sanchez, who has shown had really great crossing ability. Some of the best actually so far in the championship. So partner that with someone like JJ. And I mean, if he can get some accurate crosses over there, I mean, RIFC could find themselves, feasting in that box.
Sean, has the Hearts of Pine struggled with aerial duels, or are they somewhat consistent in their defense of those this early on?
No, you're spot on, Matt. Aerial duels has been an issue for the Hearts. I think when we played Hartford, we lost aerial duels like 61% to Hartford on aerial duels. And until recent, we've had some issues defending corner kicks. We've conceded on only one So, we can't be all that bad. But it was shaky. Our corner defense was shaky. And the one that we did concede on was to Hartford. It was just a free runner from the top of the box, and he just basically dunked on us, really. There was no jumping challenge to that Hartford goal. And they scored on a header on a corner kick, and that was the only one we've conceded so far this year. But good news, in the Tormenta match, there was 2 corners that we had to defend, and Cash put the double fist of fury through one of them, and then we went and headed the other one away. So we went through a match, and we defended both corners, no problem. So, hey, maybe we're on the ups.
You love to see it. Moving into the storylines for this game, I think the biggest one that just keeps reminding me is just the overall form, the result, and, where the Hearts of Pine are now. We've not yet seen this team lose a game ever. So how do they respond? How do they act? Some teams get galvanized. Some teams, it's, I think I heard you say this in one of our most recent recordings, Sean, where, steel sharpens steel. So does this loss sharpen them? And is this a revenge game for the Hearts of Pine? What are our thoughts on how they're going to be coming off of this? And then likewise, Jason, if you want to go second here, what does the win mean for Rhode Island FC, having finally gotten its first win out of the belt? It's kind of 2 different stories, 2 different trajectories. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so as far as a revenge game goes, I'm going to go with no. The good thing about Bobby Murphy is he's a very, very grounded individual. Very no-nonsense, very grounded, really, really excels at getting his point across in a very matter-of-fact way. And something that just makes total sense to everybody in the room. And it's why he's so good at what he does. And what he likes to say is, he keeps on coming back to soccer because of the people. It's a people business that he enjoys and he loves. And, why does he love it? It's probably because he's so good at communicating with people and linking up with what he wants to go do to his players and for them to go execute out there on the pitch. So I think he's shared his thoughts and his ideas on what the early stages of that league, those league games are, and what he kind of wants to get out of them, and what he was trying to prioritize with the cup. And it goes back to, having a young team and being able to, what I said earlier, steel sharpening steel in a cup competition when you're going up against 2 USL championship sides and, a glimmer of a possibility of going up against an MLS side. If you got a young team and you're trying to get them to learn on what you want them to go do and test their mettle, what better way to do it in this competition? And I think he's got that point across to his players, and I think they're focused on the task at hand.
With the first win coming, I mean, we set ourselves up for high expectations, right? So we did get our first win earlier this season than last year. But it did feel with kind of a shaky start to the season that I think some people are maybe getting a little worried, kind of thinking, well, we saw what you could do last year. You kept a lot of the same players. Like, what's going on? And things finally kind of clicked last weekend against Oakland. But also, to be fair, Oakland is not a great team this year. But, so, that's kind of a, you're on a 1-game winning streak. So at this point, I think it'll be very important to continue that momentum. So Connell will be looking to going into this game, regardless of what the lineup is for him to continue that momentum, especially as the momentous occasion looms with the home opener, now just a matter of weeks away. There's not many more games before that. So I think he's going to want to put on a good showing. And to do that, the team's going to need to be in good form. And so they're going to need to kind of pick up some more results.
Speaking of those results, it doesn't escape me, as you were just talking about the comparison of our first win in regard to 2024's campaign. We got our first win after getting booted out of the Open Cup. We went from Charlotte Independence out to Las Vegas. So that was kind of to what Sean was even saying, like that was where our mettle was tested and we pivoted, right? We bounced back from that. I think in terms of that prioritization that you were talking about and the need to get regular season points for both sides, Hearts of Pine aren't really playing with anything other than house money at this point. They've already had a cup set. If they can do it again, it's just going to sweeten it. But like for all intent, their journey has exceeded expectations of what a club's supposed. You're supposed to win at least one game, and then in theory, you go from being the better team to the underdog, right? Like that's the nature of it until you're into the final throes of a tournament of this style. So for Rhode Island FC, I think we're going to understand and we're going to learn quickly. Does Kano prioritize it the same way Bobby Murphy has already? Like if we do not see the starting 11, it's either again his immense faith in those alternates, or he's saving some for Detroit, because we only have 4 points, and we may be in playoffs right now if the season were to end in 8th, but we are a better team than an 8th place team. And so it'll be interesting to see what those midweek implications are, because it's so unpredictable. I think asking you guys, it feels like a silly question here, but momentum, if we're talking the specifics of this short rest that the Hearts of Pine are going through, is this a momentum killer to not have a game for almost 10 days on the other direction for Rhode Island FC?
I don't think so. I think it's on the border of just being too long. I think a full 14 days, 2 weeks maybe is too long. Because when we talk about a week, you have to combine in travel time in between that. Like you said, even sometimes when you're going locally, you stay the night, so you're not back till the next day. So how much of that time have you lost in terms of like practice and training? So at this point, Kano was probably actually able to get in a decent amount of practice and really kind of work on some of the things he wanted, instead of like, recover, 1 day practice, recover, and then before you know, it's already the weekend and it's time to travel to the next location. So I think that nice little break maybe gave them some opportunity, especially after a win, to kind of maybe, celebrate those wins. And even, knowing the coach that he is, looked at what they could have done better, because they know they're going to need to get better to like beat those top opponents.
Sean, the Hearts of Pine team is a very young team, and they've not yet been put through the gauntlet of midweek, really short turnaround. Is this the first test for them dealing with only a 3-day break between games? Are they ready for this? Have you seen them set up for success so far with this organization?
Yeah, so they did actually have one short turnaround when they went out to Spokane on the heels of Hartford, and that long track out there to the West Coast. So we've seen this once before from the Hearts. I think on the heels of this match and going into their next league match, just a little bit more space, I think they'll probably do okay. Certainly, I would like to think that match is probably going to be a little bit better off than what we saw in Spokane. So I think they've already got that one long track out on the West Coast with a short turnaround under their belt. Okay, that's what that feels like. That's what that looks like. That's how we performed. What can we do to make a difference on that the second go around? So they've kind of got that under their belt. So we'll see how that next league match looks on the heels of this RIFC match.
And then, we talked about this. This is more than just an Open Cup match, right? This is the early shots for the battle of New England Soccer Supremacy. I don't want to say that there's a rivalry. I don't want to say there's angst to it. But Sean, do the fans in Portland, do they recognize this as more than just the round 3 advance for their team?
I'll certainly do. Yeah, no, we certainly do. So we recognize the league, the success you guys had in your league last year, and certainly respect what you guys accomplished in your first league, and going all the way to the final, coming up just a little bit short, but still going all the way to the final in your first season, not too shabby. So yeah, getting a chance to go up against you guys in a cup competition. It's certainly more than just a regular cup match. Certainly look at it as certainly a bench test, if you will, to kind of see what we can do up against you guys in a game that matters. We had our 2 preseason matches, and those were hotly contested. I'm sure we're expecting exactly the same thing in a competition that does matter, and certainly matters to the Hearts, and it's certainly how they're prioritizing things. And the supporters group and the fans that are going to be at this match all understand that. Certainly from the Darragh and Union side of the house, we've been talking about it for a solid week, probably a week and a half. I'm looking forward to this match.
Jason, when Nate Messer scores the only goal that the Hearts of Pine will score, and it's going to be a worldie, do we think Nate Messer is going to celebrate?
So when he scores a top bins direct free kick, just like what's his face from Arsenal did, I guess it depends how. I don't know.
Wait, are you talking about Declan Rice? Because Declan Rice did it twice. We don't want a Declan Rice comparison. We want one goal. So that's a terrible analogy. You've just condemned this to now 2 Nate Messer worldies. Thank you. But anyways, I interrupted.
My words don't mean anything. That I don't believe in willing things into existence. I've been trying to get this winter to go away. We got a peek of it a few weeks ago. I was like, oh, 60, it's great. And then I was like, nah, check this out. Here's some snow again. I don't know in terms of, I don't think there's any bad blood in the way that he left us. I think that he had an opportunity. So, will he celebrate? Maybe he'll be excited and happy. Will he go over and taunt us? I don't think so. Very much like, I'm happy I scored. I'm not going to do something crazy, just kind of muted celebration to a certain extent.
I saw the passion when he hit the crest on his first goal, and I don't remember seeing that in the goal he scored against the Independents. So, and listen, you also Messer's a Vermont guy from the Green. Like, he's probably one of the most traveled soccer players in New England now, at least at the professional level. Revolution need to give him a contract next year, so that way he can complete the circuit and then he can retire at 40.
Run
for
the gauntlet.
Hartford.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, even if he does, the most important thing is we all acknowledge that Nathan Messer is going to score against Rhode Island FC. That's just the way it works. That's how it goes. Sean, question here: loss of Liotti. There's been some question on your attack. You guys have only scored 1 goal now across your 3 regular season games. You scored in bunches in your first round of the Open Cup, and then it was pretty shaky into the final minutes of the second match. Liotti's got 2 goals, but is the forward line going to be okay without him this week?
Well, I think we're going to be probably a little bit less without him. Liotti has certainly got a quality touch to him that we saw in the very first cup match against CD Firelands. Reaching his leg around somebody and getting a touch on a whip ball coming in and passing it into the back of the net. I mean, that's a quality touch. It doesn't matter if you're playing amateur side or not. You still got to make the play around a defender. So he's got it in his locker. It's just since then, he hasn't been able to find the back of the net. It's like he's been jinxed or something. But the good news is we've gotten plenty of chances. So the Hearts are creating for the people up front in the front line. So it's just a matter of time until the goal boots, I think is what they like to call them, right? We find our goal boots and we start getting some goals and put them in the back of the net. The chances are there. The midfield and the outside backs, they are creating. We're going to be a little bit lesser without Azad Liotti in the side. But we got some pretty good people to put up there in the front line to take his place. And like I said, I think if Wada ends up starting and he shows his 10 skills, the way he showed him in Japan, and he can link up with Titus Washington, which has been doing a lot of creating for Lizotti, hasn't really had a good chance to do much finishing yet. I'd be interested to see what that Water to Washington link up looks like. And if that gets going in this match, it could get interesting.
Liotti looked unfortunate not to score there against. I was watching that South Georgia Tormenta game. So, I mean, maybe luckily for us, he won't be there, but it does feel like it's going to come for him. He's getting into the right positions. He's getting the service. It's just kind of nicking the bar instead of going on the inside.
Yeah, it is. We've seen that, right? We've had players who suffered through that last season. It is a tough time to go through. I guess, gentlemen, the final question. It feels like this game's destined to go to penalties. Two draws amongst these teams in the preseason. In the regular season, we both have had draws now. Rhode Island was known as the Draw Kings last year.
We are the Draw Kings.
We drew in the Charlotte Independence game. It feels, I don't know why, but it feels like this game's going to go to penalties. I can't quite put the reason other than just it feels like it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't want another 4-4 barn burner in terms of like trying to build the defense's confidence, but I mean, also makes for entertaining soccer.
I may get kicked off the plane as this is happening if I'm watching a 4-4, 30,000 feet up in the air. That's going to be a problem. I'm going to get like kicked out in Philadelphia on the plane home. Sean, your thoughts, like, do either one of these teams have the ability to end it in 90?
No, I don't think we are going to end it in 90. I think the way I've got it drawn up, I think it's going to be a hotly contested battle. We went 0-0 and we went 2-2 in the preseason. I'm going to split the difference and say we go 1-1 at the end of 90. We go into extra time, and I'm going to go with the Hearts winning in extra time, 2-1.
Okay. All right. Jason, before we get into your prediction, let's go through this. Each of these teams, what do they need to do to make sure that they win this game? Obviously, I'm going to say practice your penalties and get ready. But Jason, what are your thoughts on Rhode Island FC getting the win? How do they need to do it?
And so I know we just talked about that it feels like it's destined for penalties, but I think for RIFC to get themselves in a good position to win this match, I think they actually need to handle it in that full 90 there. We've seen that they do their best work when they score in that first half, especially if it's more than one. From there, they can kind of control the match in a sense of pressing their opponents and continuing to be threatening in terms of them having to come out of their shell to really attack RIFC. And then also, I think that if coach does decide to go with a heavily rotated squad, I think that if at halftime it's 0-0, I think you start to bring in some of the quote unquote big guns and you start making some early substitutions, bring on those impact players that we have, the starting guys, to kind of get that taken care of, because 120 minutes in penalties before going to play against Detroit on the weekend, it's not a good time.
Sean, what do the Hearts of Pine need to get right to win this game?
So the Hearts need to kind of keep RIFC in front of them. It's going to be difficult, in my opinion, to try to keep the attack on the wits with RIFC. So they're going to make sure they try to keep RIFC in front of them and get their favorite attack down that left-hand side and get some chances going for Titus up at the top. So if they can keep it all in front of them and contest those duels, win the aerials, defend the corners, if we can do that, I think we've got a real good chance of coming out of this with a win.
So the score predictions for this match are, interestingly, like, I know Hearts of Pine fans show up. I did see a lot of votes across. I usually just calibrate it off of like FOTMob, SofaScore, and I take the total projections from fans. 38% only believe that the Hearts of Pine will continue their historic run. 57% believe that Rhode Island FC will get it done on game day. 4% of people thought this would end in a draw. And that's a little suspicious, since it can't be a game that ends without a victor. Maybe they were the true soccer sickos who knew it was destined for extra time. I don't quite know, but they're the penalty believers themselves. Sean, you had a 2-1 after extra time. Jason, what do you got on for your score prediction?
I'm going with 3-1. I think they'll get maybe too early on. I think we'll see Nate Messer worldy, and then maybe some kind of late second half goal to kind of ease it off there.
I've got 2-1 myself. I do think that the game needs to be kind of put to bed in that first 45 minutes. Rhode Island FC is strong at doing that right now. So if they can get ahead and make Portland chase, I haven't seen Portland do a good job yet of recovering. It's one thing if both teams are kind of at it and they're in the same chance of winning, but watching Portland when they're behind, they look a little bit more, I don't want to say emergency defending, but they just look a little
shaky.
bit more. Yeah, shaky is the right word. But I mean, either way, both of these teams are going to be going for each other. Our Hillside Quant believes that it will be a 2-0 victory for Rhode Island FC. So he clearly wasn't paying attention to the earlier draws that these two teams had, because either they're not going to find the net against each other, or there will be goals galore to be had. Wrapping things up here, Sean, Rhode Island FC is heading down to Lewiston to take the Hearts of Pine on. It's going to be at the Franklin Athletic Complex this Tuesday, April 15th at 7 p.m. But there's also going to be what I think the Dirigo Union is calling the pregame boogie. I love that, by the way. I know it's a Craft Brew Underground in Auburn, and I need to remind people, this game is not in Portland. So if you're going up there, don't get to Portland and go to their normal stadium. You will not find a soccer game there on the night. So instead, you're going to be in the Auburn, Lewiston area. The pregame boogie starts at 4 p.m. For the Rhode Island FC fans, we've been told everyone's more than welcome. It's a soccer community. What can you share about the pregame activities, and what should fans know before they go?
Yeah, so like you said, everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome, and certainly want to make sure we remind everyone that where we're going to be playing the match is a high school field. So there won't be any alcohol or any tobacco of that sort or anything like that on the premises. So need to make sure everyone is reminded of that. But we certainly at the pregame boogie can certainly indulge and enjoy each other's company and celebrate the fandom of these two clubs and what we have come to enjoy and what we're getting ready to go watch and tell the tales of kind of what you guys went through last year and what we're currently going through this year, and just be in good company and talk football and get ready to go support our clubs and support our teams for a good 90 minutes or more and enjoy that together. And then, hey, maybe even afterwards, depending on people's on what they've got going on, maybe we can do a little bit on the backside of things too.
Yeah, and remember, if you do try to pull up the Craft Brew Underground, it will say closed for their normal operating hours. The Portland Zoo has partnered with the DU to have it open specifically for the soccer sickos to hang out and party. So don't feel that you can't go in because you see it as you're trying to navigate and says, this place won't be open when you get there. Sean, before we wrap things up, I want to just make sure I give you the floor to talk about, anything going on with the Hearts of Pine, anything going on with the Dirigo Union, anything going on with the club, or just your own content and the things you do for the Blazing Musket. What's the good word, my friend?
Yeah, so for the Dirigo Union and watching the Hearts, we've been doing a lot of away days, right? So we've been doing a lot of watch parties in the local businesses and area and in the Portland area right now, and we've been enjoying that, and then had some pretty decent turnouts. The first one we did, we probably had about 110 people at that one. Second one we dipped down to about 30-40, and the last one we just had, I think we probably were somewhere in that 80 range. So really, really enjoying the support for this club. And community and getting together and watching the Hearts and celebrating. that's part of being a Derigo Union supporter. It's not just supporting the Hearts. It's also supporting the community and having these get-togethers and supporting local businesses and backing each other in and around the area. You know, that's a big part of what these supporter groups do. And, you know, some people kind of lose sight of that. And it's certainly nice to take that and put that to the forefront. And these watch parties kind of give us a chance to do exactly that. So as far as me, what I got going on, yeah, you get anything that I have for the Hearts. I write for the Blazing Musket, so articles over on theblazingmusket.com. You can find my work over there, and of course, you can find myself along with my Derigo Union supporter group, comrades, if you will, over on YouTube on the Derigo Union channel, and we've got a couple of podcasts over there that we do on the weekly.
Definitely go subscribe to them. I love their content. They do the thing where they set up in different places. So you've been at like Bissell, you've been at the Portland Zoo. Were you at the club soccer shop, or was that just a retail thrift store for one of them?
Yeah, no, that was the club's shop where they sell the jerseys and the scarves and the shirts and all that stuff. Yeah, it was in the wintertime, and we were kind of bouncing from spot to spot. And as you see in the earlier podcast. And we said, hey, you know what? It's kind of wintertime. We're kind of looking for a spot. You mind if we take up residence in the shop? And they said, that's a great idea. Yes, please come down to the shop. We're like, okay, cool. So we come down in the wintertime, and we set up down there, and we certainly enjoyed ourselves.
I mean, there's just people like they're just shopping, and then they just like stop and cross their arms and just start listening to the show being done right in front of them. So it's fantastic. Please go watch their stuff. And then, of course, just continue to watch our stuff, which is why you're here right now. Especially if there's any new Portland fans listening, we're glad you're here. Remember, if you aren't going to this game, you can catch all the action on Paramount Plus. So this game will be exclusively on Paramount Plus, not the Golasso Sports Network, but just good old Paramount Plus. And then the Guild will be having the watch party for those that aren't traveling. So we've already confirmed they have a Paramount account, so there's no need to worry that won't be a thing. Jason, before you get us out of here, I have a question I want to end this episode with, because I was doing some research and I'm curious, with the Hearts of Pine now playing, I want to ask you guys, which is there more of when it comes to soccer logos in the North American landscape? Are there more with trees in the logo or more nautical themed logos?
In all of America?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to lean ever so slightly into the nautical theme.
Yeah, I'm going to go with nautical nonsense as well. I feel like we don't appreciate trees as much as we should.
I mean, there's one team that has an axe for it, so they're just out there murdering trees. I've never understood, by the way, in the Portland to Portland, like cross symmetry of this, you've got the Portland pines and then you've got the Portland timbers. It didn't dawn on me until like too late that they're both tree teams, yet one has an axe for their logo and one is just love and trees. So like you couldn't have found two polar opposites with the same city name.
I can't wait for the Portland Derby to happen. I bet that'd be fiery.
This is why the Open Cup needs to continue, and all MLS teams need to be a part of it. But yes, you are correct. There are more nautical themed teams. Unfortunately, there's just too many teams with boats. That's the real problem. There's only 4 teams with anchors, but there are too many teams with boats in them, and that is a problem that we need to correct at some point. There are surprisingly, though, a lot of teams with trees in their logo. A lot of teams. You would be really surprised if you knew the number. But anyways, Sean, thank you so much for coming on this episode. It has been a pleasure. I hope we get to touch base with you again around the Jägermeister Cup time. We can't wait to see how you and the Hearts of Pine do for the rest of the season. Obviously, you're going to catch a big L this Tuesday, but after that, we'll be right there rooting alongside you again. And thanks so much for coming on our podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt and Jason. I certainly appreciate your time.
Course. Thanks, Sean. And let's wrap this up then here. So make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage. including great work from Sean here covering Hearts as Pine as well as RIFC. And that's at theblazingmusket.com. You can catch us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcasts. Instagram at Raising Anchor, and we've got that website, www.raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up, guys.
Anchor's up. And hey, way to go on getting that ending done right this time. I'm proud of you.
Only took 125 tries.
I just realized I didn't play the video, so we're all just staring at each other, not talking.
I wasn't sure if you're going to edit that in or...
I made the mistake there. This is a fun time. You know, when you're not recording at your home and you're in someone else's home, it's a problem. Bye, guys.